Emily Jones was a young girl who was murdered. It tragically happened on Mother's Day, and there's a headline here: Woman 30 is charged with murder after 7-year-old was stabbed to death as she played in park on Mother's Day. There was a perception that this story was largely ignored in the media, in the mainstream media, because this is a young girl, a young white girl, and we've been talking this evening about all lives matter. And I just wanted to bring this up and get your thoughts on it and really explore why such, and I'm going to call them conspiracy theories, were espoused regarding this, as if to say, because this young girl was murdered by a foreigner, the story was hushed away.
Well, I first heard of Emily Jones on your show. Your callers started to call in and mention Emily Jones, and I hadn't heard that name, and nor had you at the time. And as the story broke, and even when they spoke about it, it seemed like they were referring to the Muslims or someone or black or whoever killing this poor lady. I think it was the English. Was it a white woman that killed her? If I'm not mistaken. But
I'll update you on the detail there, Omar. Woman's been charged. Eltiona Skana, 30 years old. This person is from Albania. So she was murdered by a woman from Albania. Perhaps the perception was this story is not being portrayed in the public because it's a foreigner and it's going to drum up racism. However, it would seem the reality, and this is what the response from the editor of a newspaper said, and he referred to conspiracy theories after he was receiving emails and being questioned why he had not mentioned the name of the alleged murderer of the 7-year-old. However, the fact is, you, under UK law, cannot name a suspect until they have been charged. So that was the reason why the name was withheld from the public. And this editor hit out at crazed theories put forward by readers as to why the newspaper had not published a suspect's name. Police have now charged 30-year-old Eltiona Skana with murder and possession of a bladed article, as was reported by the news on Wednesday. So when something like this happens, and it is a foreign national who is guilty of murdering a young British 7-year-old, which is a horrendous, awful, indescribable crime, I can understand why there would be this perception that this has been hushed up, but it would seem it was actually just a case of following the law, and that would have been done regardless of whoever the murderer was. Now, the fact that the murder was committed by a foreign national is a whole other argument in and of itself. And you might well tell me, well, I'm into segregation anyway. You've alluded to it in the United States of America. Maybe you want the same thing here in Britain, but that will be for you to answer, Omar.
Well, my reasoning for saying this was almost hyperbolic. I want peace, and that's absolutely last resort. And that's what the minister also teaches us. They see absolute last resort. I wouldn't like that, but if we can save lives, would it not be a good thing? So me mentioning that was more for a debate and to see, can it someday go somewhere? But regarding the killing of this young girl, Emily Jones, they mentioned that the woman that killed her had mental issues. And my question to you would be, when are we going to do something about mental issues? Also, a young girl a couple of years ago in Birmingham, you might remember, on a bus at 7 o'clock in the morning, as she was heading to school. I'm not sure if it was a Polish guy. The rumors were swirling at the time, but she was stabbed to death on the bus as the driver, he looked on, and the driver allowed the killer to be released. And we had a Muslim woman, a very wealthy family from Saudi Arabia, sending their daughter to some hotshot university. And she was walking with a burqa, and she was stabbed to death as well by a mentally insane person. So I'm asking, when are we going to look at that? We're talking about white and black people. When are we going to look at those people who kill, these mental, the people with these sort of problems? Is it not time that we looked into all this?
It is, and also there's the perception again that every time a white person commits a mass shooting, they are diagnosed with mental health issues, but when a black person does it, they're a gangster, and when a Muslim does it, they are a terrorist. I've got another caller I'm going to experiment with, but as it's such a serious topic, we are going to have to lose it unless it's a serious call. If you want to get involved in the conversation, it's 07491751203, but some people just can't handle a serious debate. I'm going to move it on, Omar, to my final section, if you're happy to stay with me.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Ethnic breakdown of grooming offenders and victims. It's another hot topic. Now we see, yet again, for much of the data, the race of the perpetrator, the offender, is unknown. Same for the victim. But for those groups that we do have information of, the largest ethnic group that commits grooming type activity is the white population, or on 36%. That's only just ahead of the Asian population, who are just behind by 1% or so. So there is a disproportionate number, because they're a small part of the population, remember fractions in school, a disproportionate number of Asian men committing these grooming type offences, and there is a hugely disproportionate number of white children. It's only children that are victim of grooming, I believe, when it comes to definition of the crime. It's a hugely disproportionate number of white victims. However, this goes back to what we said earlier about there are many, many, many instances of white people being killed at the hands of the police in America, but I never ever seem to hear about it in the news. There are many, many incidents of white people being involved in grooming type activity, but whenever I hear that word, I associate it with what we call Asian / Pakistani / Muslim, because majority of them are in the stories that we read, grooming gangs. So yeah, again, it just shows you that our perception and what is portrayed to us in the media is very far off what's actually occurring in reality, no?
Firstly, it's very difficult to call them Muslim.
Well, people are, you know what I mean, Omar, people of a Muslim background. Sorry to throw that word at you. I should have known that would.
The media mentions it a lot, but
no, do you know what? The media don't. No, they don't. The media call them Asian. The media call them Pakistani. They used to, but they don't anymore. It's hard to find the word Muslim in the Daily Mail or many of the papers anymore. It's hushed away. But it is hard to find that word.
It's hushed away, but also it's the antithesis of what Muslim does. It's like saying, Christian pedophile priest. It just doesn't go together. Fine, you can call them pedophile priest, but
doesn't it?
You can't call them Christian pedophiles. And
well, Catholic to be precise, the Roman Catholic Church.
Yes, of course. But I can't call somebody like Weinstein and Epstein and so on.
Thank you, Omar. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Forgive me.
Yeah.
You can't call them
and nor should you.
Equally, this is why, and nor should anyone. And this is why also people have dropped the affiliating Muslim with the word grooming, because it's the complete opposite of what that person, if he truly
Yes,
was a Muslim,
but we okay. Yes, I know, but we must not lose sight of the fact that there is a disproportionate problem within that community, and that's why we need to talk about communities and not religions. As I said previously, religion will always be interpreted. But if there are a group of people who have a sick, perverse interpretation of their religion, then we need to suss that out. And I went down this route the other night. The gentleman that was saying no, they're not just Asian, it's Muslims. He's actually learnt something. And if he goes further, and if he found out, I don't know if he knows the different sects within Islam. I don't know how well versed he was with the different madhabs and the different schools of thought and aqidah and fiqh. But if he found out, for example, that it was only one particular strange sect of Islam that had a name that was responsible for all this, would he be happy to deport all those Muslims and let the rest stay? Yeah, of course. And the truth is, it's only the individuals themselves that can be blamed for any particular crime. I've got on the screen grooming and race. What do we know? This is an article from the BBC. There are contrasting views on the role played by race and culture in the trafficking scandals, but it's being talked about, and that's the BBC.
Well, also what we need to talk about is the middle-aged men who, when you visit Thailand, who are on the plane on their own heading off there. They go to India, they go to Vietnam, and the Philippines, and we all know why they're going, and we all know what they do there. So that's also something that we need to in time question, because those people, just because they're Filipinos or Vietnamese, and it doesn't make them less of a human being because we're in this country and they're in that country. So I hope that the Secret Service or whoever's in charge, the Border Force, when they return, they ask them, okay, what did you do and where did you stay, and can we really try to figure out if there were pedophiles here? What do they do when they go there? Let's just be frank about that. But regarding the grooming gangs, I for one, I think one of your callers mentioned that what are we doing, and he accepted that I'm not a part of this and I don't endorse this, and most Muslims don't, obviously. But what are we doing about this? And it's like, what can we do? A rapist is going to rape, a pedophile is going to do his crimes. Unless we see it, unless we know of it, and then you have the right to say that I didn't do anything.
Well, if you're saying there's nothing we can do, then I refer you back to your statements earlier about segregation, and this is why and I don't agree with you, but the far right might agree with you for once and say, yes, we want this, we want our country for us, and you go to your country, and if you want to do what you do over there, then do it in your own backyard.
Well, segregation is one thing, but that's still not going to stop the rapist raping. The rapist is.
It might stop them if the victims are disproportionately white, and these groups feel that they don't attack their own kind. If they were amongst only their own kind, might they not rape anyone? I mean, it's an awful topic that we're discussing. I know.
Rape their own.
I don't know. To be honest, I don't even want to speculate about it. But these are points that will be made, and we need to prepare the case against them if we are going to argue against forced segregation, which is one of the desperate measures people are thinking about when it comes to preventing such crime. I'm just going to read you a quote from MP Naz Shah, MP for Bradford West, who ousted our good friend George Galloway, unfortunately, in his constituency. She says on the topic, yes, Pakistani men are disproportionately involved in grooming gangs and this particular model of abuse. No, that is not a racist statement. Neither is it racist to say that when it comes to wider child abuse, nearly 90% of those convicted and on the sex offenders register are white men. I think you probably agree with her sentiment there.
Well, the fact is, we've just made a unique term for the groomers, so we can say, oh, they're grooming and they're that they're 96, that whatever percentage that the Asian groomers are. But overall, we want to stop rape in this country, and that unfortunately is it's in all communities. But I don't think any of your viewers will deny, disproportionate or not, that's the one thing that we have to stop, and we have to start looking at the whiter community also. 100% of the baby rapists are white, so we have to also start looking.
Well, I don't think you can talk about statistics such as 100%. We don't need to conjure up horrific images to make our points either. I do find it strange when people latch on to the most horrific of crimes and even hypothetical crimes in order to make their point.
Well, the reason I mentioned 100%, and I'm sure there's equal, probably, who knows, and I should have said convicted, 100% convicted, that they had, I think the last few, well, I don't know how many years, but they said 100% of the people.
Well, I'd have to ask you where you got your statistics for.
So, I hope I'm wrong. I don't have any issue with that, but that's what I heard on the news, and that's what I'm projecting out today. But for me, it's not a case of 96% or 20% or whatever percent is in this country. We have to all come together and try to put a stop to this, because what difference does it really make? And I think even the most racist person in this country, if he saw such an injustice taking place, then I'm sure he would intervene. And it goes back to what Muhammad the Prophet said, that when you see any injustice, stop it with your hands. And if you can't stop it with your hands, then stop it with your tongue. Stop it, say something against it. And if you can't even stop it with your tongue, then at least hate it from within. So at the very least, we should be foaming at the mouth, thinking, how are we going to stop this injustice? And so a start would be just coming up with something to do. I mean, let's have a collective rally, or let's do something. I don't know what. I'm not in the field, but I can certainly assure you, if I know of anything or if I hear of anything, then I certainly would be on the front line, and I'll stop it immediately.
Omar X, thank you very much as ever for joining me on Lessons for Life.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, that was Omar X, and thanks again to him. Always brings great value to the show. We don't always agree, but this show is not about agreeing, and if you disagree with me, then I want to hear from you. Please come back next time. We'll do it all again tomorrow night from 10 o'clock. Shout out to people that have been in the chat. Jen Wallace, thank you. Give Palestine a chance. Absolutely. Thank you for that. This has been Lessons for Life. We were here and we are gone. Latest.